So before a ball had been kicked this season, I of course made my championship predictions, but after a few more transfers have gone through and we've had the first month of fixtures, how am I feeling about those predictions? Let's find out. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. Quite an interesting one coming at you guys today. Loads going on in the championship at the moment, despite the fact that there is currently an international break. If you've not seen yesterday's video, go ahead and check that out. If you've not seen the video that I did with James Lawrence Alcott over on the League of 72 channel, make sure to check that out as well. But I thought today would be a bit of an interesting video. If you'd like to see me do sort of maybe like an updated prediction list or something like that, now that all these transfers have been finalised and we know what the teams each club will be working with for this season, make sure to leave a like on today's video. But today we're just going to be giving my sort of initial thoughts on each side and how they've started the season and if I'm confident or not with where I've backed everyone. Without any further ado, let's jump into this one. And so we'll start out with my bottom three at the start of the season. I had Derby, Peterborough and Huddersfield all to be relegated. Currently none of them are in the bottom three after 5 matches. I know it's very early days at the moment and we can't really read all too much into this, but we're at least a little bit more informed now with the teams that each side will be going into this season with. Starting out with Derby, in the end, not the worst transfer window in the world. We touched on it in yesterday's video, and while squad depth still is a little bit of an issue, they are in a much better position now than they were, say, 7 days until the season was about to kick off. You know, they looked like they were in an absolute mess then. If they can manage to get a bit of luck throughout the season, you know, get Bielik back from his injury eventually, then who knows. I still have my doubts about them because I think that thing with squad depth could play into their season this time around, but I'm a lot more positive on their chances now than I was a few weeks ago. I think that a lot of people are feeling that at the moment. With Peterborough, they are currently outside the relegation zone. I think that each of the newly promoted clubs have found the jump to be, you know, quite a jump so far actually. Obviously Peterborough and Hull have both got 1 win on the board so far. Blackpool yet to get off the mark, but they have picked up a couple of draws themselves. Peterborough have been an interesting one really. I think that they've been competitive in their home matches especially. They got quite unlucky to lose that game against West Brom in the fashion that they did, and they've picked up 4 points from their other 2 home matches. Just need to find a formula for something away from home, because when they came to Deepdale they didn't really look all too competitive in that one, but keeping hold of some of their key players will be absolutely massive. But perhaps the surprise package of the season so far is Huddersfield Town. A lot of people had them bottom 3 at the start of the season, and while I'm still not completely sold on them, I didn't expect this start to the season. They currently find themselves in the top 6. They've won their last 3 matches now, and I mean especially their last game against Reading, they seriously won that in convincing fashion. Sorba Thomas has been an absolute shining light for them so far, so yeah, it's interesting at the moment. Next then we'll go to the 3 that I had just above the relegation zone. So I had Hull, Blackburn and Coventry finishing in these places. Hull, I'm still pretty okay with being in and around that part of the table. I think that come the end of the season, you know, 21st, maybe 22nd is in and around where I see Hull being, obviously. Getting some players back to full fitness after this international break will be absolutely massive for them. They looked brilliant on the opening day of the season against Preston, but haven't quite managed to hit those heights since then. After that we have Blackburn, who, to be fair to them, have started out the season fairly well. We mentioned on yesterday's video that I didn't feel as if they had the best of transfer windows, but there is still quality that's in that squad. Obviously Blackburn started last season fairly well and they just seemed to tumble as the year went on, so we'll see if something similar happens this time around, but at the moment they are looking better than a 20th place side, although maybe they have got a little bit fortunate in some of their results, particularly some of the ones that they picked up away from home. One that I'm really not sure about at the moment though is Coventry in 19th, because judging off their performances so far, I do think they will be quite a bit higher up in the table. I think they've been unlucky so far not to score more goals. Last season that also kind of applied to them. I think they hit the woodwork more times than any other championship club, and so far this season they've created a fair few big chances. I think they're taking the most shots per game this season alongside West Brom, but they've not managed to get all too many of those goals over the line, just scoring 5 goals so far this season. So once things finally click for Coventry, I think they could be in for quite a decent season. And then we'll go to the next 3. We got Blackpool, Preston and Bristol City. Obviously Blackpool at the moment, I'd probably have a little bit lower than my original estimation. Obviously yet to get off the mark with a win in the Championship, but I mean, they have looked competitive, to be fair to them. It's not as if in their matches they've been getting battered every week and stuff like that, you know. Millwall, they could have easily picked up a point from that one. Bournemouth, they did quite well to come back in and things like that, but the longer it goes on without getting that first win, it just sort of starts to play on the back of your mind. I know they've got Fulham as their first fixture as well after the international break, so it doesn't get much easier for them in that one. The only sort of saving grace that I can come up with Blackpool is that there's a lot of new players who are coming in there. I think that 13 new players have to be integrated, and it's, you know, it's difficult doing that, but making the step up as well as integrating a new team is quite challenging. And they also had that quite poor start to last season, and eventually things seem to click for them. Preston in 17th, I'm still okay with. I'd still have us probably in and around this part of the table. If you'd have asked me a couple games ago, I'd have probably had us significantly lower, but after a couple of results started to pick up for us, we got a bit of decent business done on deadline day as well. I still think that around 17th is probably realistic for Preston this season, although we do have a very tough run of fixtures which is coming up next. Bristol City in 16th, also fairly pleased with that prediction at the moment. I still see that as fairly reasonable for Bristol City. I think that they probably could have done with a little bit more business in this transfer window, so we'll see how they get on between now and January. After that, we then get to 3 predictions, which I'm not sure how I'm feeling on these 3 at the moment for different reasons. So starting out with Birmingham, I think they could very easily finish higher than the 15th that I had them originally predicted to finish in. I think they had a strong end to the transfer window, which obviously would have influenced my prediction had I made this prediction video a little bit later on when a few more deals had gone through and things like that. Bowyer seems to have them quite well regimented at the moment. I'm always a little bit sort of cautious with overestimating Birmingham, because in the past I've definitely gone ahead and done that, but this season something does feel like it is a little bit different. They've used the loan market very well, picked up some great deals on free transfers, and I'm interested to see how that Deeney deal works out as well. Next up then for Reading in 14th, I think at the moment I'd probably have them significantly lower than that. It's not been the greatest of transfer windows for them in the end. They have picked up some quality, obviously they've been quite limited in what they can do, but they played the loan market fairly well in a couple of positions. But you do fear for them if a couple of key players pick up injuries again. Things could get quite sticky. They look really shoddy in their last game before the international break against Huddersfield, so if that sort of similar pattern of momentum was to continue, yeah, you start to get a little bit twitchy. And then Nottingham Forest in 13th place. Now, Forest were a really tough side to predict at the start of this season, and I think that, to be honest, they were probably one of the most inconsistently placed teams throughout everyone's prediction videos that I saw on YouTube. Like, some people had them challenging for the top 6, some people had them fairly well rooted in mid-table like myself, and then others had them battling relegation. You know, they were absolutely everywhere on people's tables. Chris Hughton really has it all to do now, because I think that I don't think they've had the worst transfer window in the world, to be honest with you. We mentioned that in yesterday's video. I think they have brought in some quality, especially on the loan deals that they picked up. There is goals in this squad, and it's up to Hughton now to get the best out of them, because at the moment they look nowhere near a 13th place side. Next up then for my other teams in mid-table, I had Swansea 12th, Barnsley 11th and Luton 10th. I'm certainly happy with the Luton and Barnsley shouts at the moment. I think that 10th and 11th for those 2 teams at the moment is looking fairly realistic. On the whole, I quite like the look of Luton so far, if we sort of just disregard that 5-0 loss they had against Birmingham. And then Barnsley have also been a little bit hit and miss so far, but it's clear to see the new style which is slowly coming in there. With Swansea though, I'm a little bit unsure about at the moment, really. I think that everyone is accepting that it's going to be a bit of a slow build for them this season, not only because Russell Martin's come in there, but it's such a contrast in terms of the 11 on the pitch now compared to the start of last season. Like, realistically, there's probably only like a handful of players who made up their 11 from last season that are still there now. Obviously, keeping hold of Grimes in the end is a massive benefit for them, but stylistically, things are going to take a while to click. I think they're currently averaging the most possession per 90 in the league, but the fewest shots per 90, which has really been their Achilles heel so far. I do think they'll come good eventually. Whether that'll be sort of towards the end of this season or heading into next season, I think it will be that slow of a build, but yeah, we'll wait and see with Swansea. At the moment, I might have them a little bit lower than that, I think. After that, these were the 3 sides who I then had finishing outside of the top 6. So I had Cardiff, Stoke and Millwall. At the moment, Cardiff are exactly where I I predicted them to be. They're currently 9th in the table. Still see that as a fairly realistic finish for them this time around. They didn't really sort of push out the boat in terms of their transfer business. I think the objective was more to sort of pull back on the wage budget there a little bit, which may hinder them come the end of the season and their challenge for the top 6. But I mean, Mick's got it in him, you know, to just grind out this season. I think they still will be there or thereabouts, but they may just fall a little bit short. The team that I've probably changed my mind on most after the business that they've done is probably Stoke, to be honest with you. I was hesitant to back them for the top 6 this season just because they've been such an underachieving side in years gone by. You know, I think they were always tipped to be favourites to be within the top 6 in each of the 3 past seasons they've had in the Championship, and they finished in the bottom half of the table for each of those seasons. However, we really praised them in yesterday's video for the transfer business that they've done on the pitch so far. You know, that Fulham game aside, I think they've looked really quite good. There's a new style of play which is coming in now, which is quite attractive. They've scored some great goals. That Josh Tymon goal, probably my favourite goal which has been scored so far this season, just for the build-up play and then the finish at the end of it. At the moment, I think I'd be tempted to maybe swap Stoke with one of the teams I have in the top 6, but yeah, it's still not looking like a bad shout, because I certainly think they'll be sort of in that sort of 8th to maybe 5th bracket, something like that. I think Stoke are looking quite strong at the moment. And then I have Millwall in 7th, who I'm a little bit sort of indifferent on at the moment. Last season was a fairly slow burning one for Millwall. Eventually they managed to pick themselves up. Obviously a lot of draws for Millwall last season. It's been a little bit of a case of them so far this season. Obviously they got that first win of the season before the international break against Blackpool. They'll be hoping that Ojo can sort of be that creative spark that they've been missing so far in the final third, and that'll free up Jed Wallace a little bit. But yeah, maybe I overestimated Millwall a little bit, but we'll wait and see. After that, making up the first 3 places in my top 6, I then had Middlesbrough, QPR and Bournemouth. All 3 of these shouts I'm fairly happy with at the moment, to be honest with you. Maybe you could substitute one of them out for Stoke, or perhaps the team that I've got finishing above them, but we'll get to talking about that in just a second. But each of them have had reasonable starts to the season. Middlesbrough probably the slowest out of all 3. They've had a fair few amount of draws so far this season, you know, typical maybe of a Warnock side there, but they've got quite a few new faces to go ahead and settle in there. But I do think they brought in quality in this window. We'll wait and see if Warnock is the right man to sort of get the best out of them. You know, quite a bit of money was paid for Pereiro especially. 1 win, 3 draws and 1 loss for Middlesbrough so far this season, so it's been a bit of a steady start for them. But I mean, if things do click, there is quality there to be had, and I mean, you always back Neil Warnock to pull off something, don't you? And then we get to QPR and Bournemouth, who I've been really quite impressed with so far this season. QPR in particular, I think that Mark Warburton has serious options with this squad now, which is quite an exciting thing. They've started this season like they ended last one, and I think a lot of QPR fans are excited at the moment. I was speaking to James Lawrence Alcott yesterday in the League of 72 video, and I think that he's fancying QPR's chances this season. I don't think he's alone in that at the moment. It does kind of feel in the Championship at the moment like the top 2 are going to be like, you know, cut above everyone else, and then there's just sort of like a mad scrap for the rest of the top 6 below them, and that's the sort of battle which I'm most interested to look into this season. And then Bournemouth alongside QPR, one of the unbeaten sides so far this season. There were a couple of frustrating performances, you know, here and there, a few draws for them so far, but I like the business that they've got done on deadline day, and for a starting month for Scott Parker, I'd say it's been pretty successful so far. The building blocks are certainly there. After that though, in 3rd place, I had Sheffield United. Now, I'm glad I wasn't backing them for the top 2, because a fair few people were. I think the majority of us did have them in the top 6, although I do remember a few people suggesting that they did think Sheffield United would struggle this season, and at the moment that's of course been quite apparent. But we are, you know, only 5 games into this season, so a bit of perspective is perhaps needed now. I put a poll out on the community tab before I was recording, basically asking you guys if you think Sheffield United will finish in the top 6 this season or not, and currently 84% of you have said no, they will not finish in the top 6, which is quite damning for them, really. Obviously, we've seen Slav have a historical slow start in the past. You know, Fulham, when they were promoted under him, were sat 17th at the end of November before they went on that wonderful run. But I just worry for them that they've not got the personnel in the final third to properly suit the system. I do like some of the deals that they got done on deadline day. Horahan, Gibbs White gives them a couple of different options in midfield. Ben Davis I also like as well, but it seems like a bit of a mismatch in there at the moment, and maybe there were a few missed opportunities from that transfer window. But then coming in as the top two, I think that most people will agree that at the moment that this is looking pretty spot on. I think the majority of us probably had this top two as well. Fulham first place, West Brom second place. At the moment, for the most part, they have looked a bit of a cut above most sides so far this season. Fulham in particular have just breezed through most of their matches. You know, we said in that game they had before the international break against Stoke that, okay, this will be the first like real challenge that Fulham will have this season, and they went ahead and beat them 3-0. Not only have they had a seriously good transfer window, I mean they've spent over 22 million, so you'd expect that, but they kept hold of a lot of their big players as well. I know that Anguissa went out on loan in the end, but they replaced him with Nathaniel Chalobah. And then West Brom as well, to be honest with you, I thought they might get off to a little bit of a slower start to the season just because this football under Ishmael is such a, you know, contrast to some of the stuff they've been playing in the past, but the players have taken to it straight away. I know there's a few frustrations maybe from the lack of incomings maybe in the summer transfer window, and obviously they didn't spend the transfer fee as well, which was quite interesting, but I still think they picked up some good deals and that squad is more than good enough to be, you know, finishing in the top two this season. But yeah, those were my championship predictions before the window ended. Those are sort of my reflections on each team since the transfer windows ended and since we've got to see them in action so far, albeit in a fairly small sample size so far. Like I said, if you would like to see a proper like updated predictions table now that all these transfers have gone through, do leave a like in today's video and let me know down below which teams have surprised you so far and which teams do you think, okay, yeah, I've definitely got them spot on. But apart from that, guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video, so thank you very much for watching. It is always massively appreciated. As always, if you did go in to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular championship content. Apart from that though, thanks for watching and I'll see you all in the next one.